한국에는 예전에 본인이 재림 예수다, 본인이 메시아다 이렇게 얘기하는 사람이 있었어요. 요즘도 있는지는 모르겠지만 메시아, 재림 예수, 메시아가 유대인이어야 하는 이유는 뭐라고 생각하십니까?
The Bible, it tells us this. Salvation is not of the Koreans, salvation is not of the Chinese, salvation is of the Jews. Salvation have to come through the Jews. Okay? And if you look at the story, actually, of the world, you're going to notice something very interesting. I'll give it to you in 2 minutes. When God created Adam, you notice something very interesting the rabbi says about Adam. Adam was not circumcised. You know why he was not circumcised? He was not circumcised because he was a perfect. He was created in perfection. Adam is. As a matter of fact, the rabbi described for us a wedding that took place in the garden between Adam and God. And the angels playing those heavenly instruments. But something happened in the garden. God waited under the chuppah, the canopy, to Adam, and Adam decided to sin and run away. As a matter of fact, it says that Adam was covered by a cloud because the glory was upon Adam before he sinned. Then you have Moses. What happened with Moses? The festival that called Shavuot or Pentecost called what? When Israel wed God. God was so desperate to wed the Jewish people yet again, okay? The Jewish people again, what does he do? He recreate the sin. The same sin. Moses go up to the mountain. And you know, the rabbis teach us that when he came down with the 2 tablets, the very first 2 tablets, for a moment, the world was restored back to the perfect fellowship just prior to the sin with the serpent. For a split second. And all the nations, everything in the world was blessed through the Jews. But what happened? The Jewish people stumbled and all the world has suffered because of this. You see the same story happen again when Yeshua has came. The Jewish people are stumbling. And Paul says, if their failure means so much to the Lord, what will be their acceptance? You have seen nothing yet. Nothing yet. Paul tells us, we have seen and nothing yet. So prophetically, what God going to do in the 4th time? He's going to wed the Jewish people again, yet again. And all of Israel shall be saved. That's why Paul concluded in Romans 11 with the words, all of Israel shall be saved. He didn't say all the church of Jesus Christ will be saved. All of Israel will be saved. The uniqueness is that the definition of the Israel has been extended now. Open door to the nations to come in and to be engrafted in. That's why you see a prophetic picture of Revelation 7. In Revelation 7, you see the nations not raptures to heaven. No, they're raptures to Jerusalem. They're standing there in Jerusalem. But I want you to notice something that you might have never caught before. Talking about prophetically. What are they holding in their hands? The Hebrew says that they hold in their hand a lulav. Lulav is one of the 4 species in the festivals of tabernacle that every Jew bind together. It's called the ingathering. The festival of tabernacle called the festival of the ingathering. So he's binding them together. And he said, all the Gentiles is going to hold in their hand lulav. Why? Because it's the feast of tabernacle. And they know what to do with this. Because they've been celebrating the feast prior to the return of the Messiah. They already know what to do with this. Because the fullness of the Gentiles already come. If you want the Messiah to come today, the true Jewish Messiah, then you have to learn those things. So when those things will occur, salvation will ultimately come to the Jewish people. He is the Jewish Messiah because the prophets of Israel told us that. Moses told us in Deuteronomy chapter 18, I will raise to you a prophet from among us, from among our people. The book of Micah chapter 5 tells us he has to become from Bethlehem. In the book of Isaiah 51, he says he will teach us a new Torah. Can you imagine a Korean or Chinese or Japanese come and teach us Torah? No. It has to be one who is the holder of the Torah. And you see that there is only one who can answer those questions. And his name is Yeshua.
그럼 유대인들이 예수를 메시아로 인정하기 위해서 그들에게 필요한 건 뭡니까?
King Solomon said, there is nothing new under the sun. You know what the Jew require today? He require a sign. At the end of the day, they tell Yeshua, if the Messiah, show us from the sign. Interestingly enough, the rabbi tell us, don't trust signs. But I believe when the blind start to see, the deaf hear, those without hope receive hope, then the Jewish people will accept him. But you have to understand something, that there is something deeper in your question. In Romans 11, I'm coming back because it's a significant chapter, verse 16, Paul says something interesting, and I use the Hebrew language for a moment. He says that if the first fruit is holy, so will be the entire dough. Everything will become holy. There's a concept in the Torah that teaching us that what you do with your first fruit determine the entire harvest. Okay? We call it bikurim, you know. Now, the first fruit in Hebrew it's actually a number. People don't realize that it's a unique number. I'll give you an example. Again, look at prophecy before I jump to Paul. To answer to you what's going to make him come back. That's in essence your question. In the book of Numbers, chapter 30 to 31 there, 31, I believe it's in number 30, Israel is commanded to go and avenge the Midianites, to go to a battle against the Midianites. And God tells to Moses to take 1,000 from each branch, from each tribe, and assemble them. So you have 12,000. There were, according to the Torah, 600,000 Israelites, men. 12,000 divided by 600,000 is the number 2%. 2%, again, Paul was a rabbi. 2% is a number of terumah, first fruit. Look what happened in the end of the book of Numbers. 2% sanctified to go to battle, and something miraculously happened. Not a single one died. The Torah tells us not even one soldier died. Nobody died. Prophetically, it's a sign of prophecy of the things to come. Paul says when the 2% of Israel stand on Mount Sinai and say, on Mount Olives and say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, all of Israel will be saved. So what do we need? We need the Truma today to happen. You want to know what the 144,000 is? 144,000 represent the Truma. That's the 2%. So if you multiply it times 50, you're actually going to have 7.2 million Jews who will save and receive the Lord. 7.2 million Jews will receive Him because it's a prophetic principle of a Truma. So today we work, but please understand that the difficulty that we are encountering is not because the prophecy, it's not because of the Bible, but because we're dealing with 2,000 years of anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish, anti-rabbinical, but those who claim to love Yeshua. But please understand, if you love Yeshua, you're going to love the Jewish people. End of story. Because Yeshua is one of us. I remember one year, I did a debate. An Orthodox rabbi and me. We sit, debate, clash.
How long time?
Recently, 1 year ago. 1 year ago. I was winning the debate, but then the rabbi gave me a knockout pouch. You know what he said? He says, let me tell you that. If Yeshua is truly indeed the Messiah, and he come here today, guess where is he going to go? Is he going to go to your Sunday church? Or is he going to come to Shabbat service with us? And I didn't have what to say. Because he's right. Yeshua is a Jew. He lived his life as a Jew. He would want to be with his own people. And that's why it's important for us to restore Yeshua back to who he truly was. We truly stole his identity in 2,000 years. And for that, and that alone, Christians have to repent and start their own restoration. Okay? So think about this. If I give you a novel, and I tell you, read the novel, and you go to the last page on the novel, and it's a murder mystery, you will know who killed who, because you read the last page. Now, you don't know the plot, you don't know the story, you don't know the motivation, you know nothing, you just know the end of the story. That is Christians today. They know what happened in the end. Okay? Us Jews, read page by page by page by page. Day in and day out. We read, we know everything about the story. We just forgot to do one thing. We have forgot to take the last page, turn it, and see Yeshua. You see, we didn't get the end of the story, but we have the context. The Gentile got the end of the story. They don't know the context. How can anybody even understand who Yeshua is without knowing the Torah, the quote-unquote, the old? How can anybody even understand anything without understanding the origin, the history, the language, the politics? You cannot. So the answer is there are two different things that have to occur prophetically. Number one, prophetically, the nation have to be grafted in. Back to Israel, properly grafted into Israel. I don't believe just because a person say, I love you, Jesus, I'm grafted into Israel. There are many churches, there are many Christians all over the world who love Jesus, they claim, but they hate the Jewish people. God is not going to put up with this. But there are some, and again it's here prophetically, Zechariah chapter 8, it says, in the last days, there will be 10 Gentiles who will grab the tzitzit, the garment of a Jew. There are some among the nations today who are grafting themselves in. They're grabbing this. And this represents exactly what Paul tells us in Ephesians chapter 2. He said, you now can come in. You know the gospel is for the Gentiles. You had no covenants, you had no Torah, you have nothing. It's given to us. Paul says in Romans 9, all the covenants given to us Jews. But guess what? There's good news for you. The sukkah in Jerusalem is big enough. So you can come in now and you can grab it and come on in. So when this condition occurs and the nation grab it, there will be a revival in the world like any other revival among the nations. This revival will yield to the ultimate revival in the Jewish people. And the two groups will ultimately merge together by Messiah. So both sides have something to be restored to. Jewish people to the Messiah, the Gentiles into the context and the roots of their Messiah. Both sides need something. Both sides lacking something. I don't want to make it sound like we Jews have all the answers. We clearly missed the Messiah. We have problems too. But you know, Paul warned us and he says, don't boast. Don't boast. You know, how many people say, oh, we don't need those Jews. They don't know Jesus. We don't know. Nonsense. If it wasn't for these Jews, you wouldn't know. None of us would know how to celebrate even the festivals. Because for 2,000 years, they held true and faithful to the oracles of God. And for that, if nothing else, we have great debt to pay for the Jewish people. So what we do, as an example, what I see prophetically now, we started a school. Okay, we have a yeshiva, a school for non-Jews who want to be grafted in properly. And what we see, at least at our ministry, Na'avat Ami, not just through the return of the kosher pig, but through the yeshiva, hundreds, students from every nation, every tribe, every tongue, who wants to learn. And that is amazing. That is incredible. Because prophecy fulfilling now. People need to understand. Prophecy is not something that's coming from heaven. Prophecy is procedural. It's not like Americans, stick something in the microwave. Ding! No. Prophecy is happening. And people need to ask themselves one question. First of all, two questions, if I may. One question is, do I want to learn about the prophecies in the Bible? Do I just want to read them? Or do I want to be part of them? Do I want to be a partaker? Say, put me in, coach. I want to be in the game. Or I just want to be a viewer on the side. Many Christians say, I just love to study prophecy. I said, not good enough. Not good enough. Be a part of prophecy. Be a part of restoration of Israel. Be a builder of Zion, spiritual Zion. Prepare a way. You see, because the disciples have asked Yeshua, here's the second important question. I hope all your audience will ask themselves this question. Is this question. Not when you're going to come to rapture the church. Not when are you coming, but the one questions the disciple asked Yeshua in Acts chapter 1. And I quote, Yeshua, when they see him coming from heaven, they say, Yeshua, have you come to restore the kingdom back to Israel? That is the question in the heart of every believer today. Have you coming? And then Yeshua said, no, and let me tell you why not. And he's telling them, you are not my witnesses. And he says, first you have to be a witness in Judea and Samaria, in Zion. That's why he says Isaiah, from Zion come forth the law and the word of the Lord to Jerusalem. From Zion out. First Zion, then the world. Okay? So they say, you will be my witnesses all over the world. So I believe God raised today prophetically Messianic Jews, just like myself, who know Torah, who know Judaism, who filled with the Spirit of God, to teach the Gentiles, so then they can get the fullness. And that will lead to the ultimate return of the King.
샤피로 씨가 보기에는 지금 유대인들, 그 중에서도 특히 정통 유대인들 중에 예수를 메시아로 인정하는 분들이 그 숫자가 점점 늘어나고 있다고 생각하십니까?
Well, I can tell you from us, when I wrote The Return of the Kosher Pig, I had no idea that we had so many Orthodox Jews who are fascinated by Yeshua. They're intrigued, they want to know more. But please understand, they're not going to receive Yeshua in the Christian terms. They're going to receive it in their own term under a Jewish lens. Okay? And Christianity today is a stumbling block for the Jewish people to receive Yeshua, the true Yeshua. So I'll give you a story, one story. I will not forget this story. I think you'll find it interesting. I was in an event here locally with a conservative rabbi, and he came to me and said, "You're a strong Jewish believer." He called me a believer, not Messianic. A strong Jew. How can you believe in this Jesus? How? I can't reconcile it. And he invited me to come to his office. And he said, "Prove to me you're a Jew." And I said, "Well, there's only one way to prove you're Jewish. I'm not going to prove that. But, through circumcision." But I said, "I'm not going to prove this way, but I'll prove to you another way. Put on a tefillin." They got it. He said, "Wow, you really know Judaism." I said, "So tell me, why are you Jewish? Why are you forsake Judaism?" In essence, I said, "I'm not." So let me show it to you. And we sat in his office and we read for about 4 or 5 hours, just Matthew. And I recall that we got to Matthew chapter 5. And Yeshua says, "I did not come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, and I come to fulfill." And I remember the rabbi just jumping, "Aha!" You go like that. Why are the Christians not doing it? And he said, "Wait, the Christians read the same book you read?" I said, yes, they do. I said, why are they not doing that? So I tried to explain it. He says, so I remember he came and he kissed me. And he says, you're not representative of Christianity. You are a Jew. And he kissed me and we maintain a relationship. You see, the problem is that even the New Testament has been read as a Christian book instead of a Jewish book and makes it difficult. When I was able to get past this with the rabbi, then the conversation went a lot better about Yeshua. So you see, half of the battle is not saying this prophecy said this or that. It's talking about the reality, historically, and of 2,000 years of Christianity. And only when we can get past this, we can speak about truly the Messiah, Yeshua as the Messiah. We have historical bondages to overcome, and philosophical and others. So, but we see, at least in our organization, that is geared toward that great fruit. And the reason we see great fruit is because we bring Yeshua as the Jew and not Yeshua the Christian.
우리 브레드 TV 시청자들은 이스라엘을 위해서 기도하고 또 유대인들을 위해서도 기도하는데 우리가 메시아닉 주들을 위해서도 기도하지만 우리가 정통 유대인들을 위해서 기도할 때 어떤 기도를 하는 게 좋겠습니까?
Wow, this is a great question. You know, scriptures tell us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. But I want to challenge that for a moment. I'm not saying not to pray. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. But it's important for your viewers to understand that there will be no peace in Jerusalem until the Prince of Peace arrives. That's the only answer. And perhaps specifically, I would ask each person to pray, ask the question, how do they support specifically the Prince of Peace return? Perhaps what they want to pray, this is something unique that just I feel in my spirit, is ask the Lord. If you're in Korea, ask the Lord that God to use you to restore the Prince of Peace through your church, through your community, through your work, through your charity, through whatever you do, to restore the Prince of Peace, to the Jewish people. There are two definitions of anti-Semitism. One definition of anti-Semitism is hating the Jewish people. Everybody knows that. I would like to change this definition with you. Here's a second definition of that. Imagine robbing the Jewish people from the Messiah. As if you rob the Jewish people from the Messiah, they cannot be the nations of priests. They cannot be doing all the wonderful things that God has called them to do. And that's also anti-Semitism. I think we have the active anti-Semitism and passive anti-Semitism. And the church need to pray today on both accounts. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, turn me inward and outward to be like Yeshua, the true King of the Jews, so I can show the Jewish people the true Jewish Messiah. That is the greatest prayer I believe every Christian can pray today, and ask God to teach them. I also want to encourage my Christian brothers and sisters. It doesn't matter where you've been, what you've been taught. Your mandate in the last days is to grab the tzitzit of the Jewish people. And as it says by Yeshua himself, to not let go, to hold on until the end, until the last days. Hold on to those days with your eyes toward Jerusalem, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit. So that is my challenge, that's my prayer, that's my plea for all the people in Korea. The Sukkah of David in Amos 9 says it's been fallen. The sukkah of David is not a sukkah, but it is, according to the rabbis, a person, do you know? The sukkah of David is the Messiah. Our Messiah is not known today to our people. It's your people. It's your people. It's all of our people. If you grafted into Israel, it's your people. That's why Paul says this. Bear each other burdens. This is the Torah of Messiah, Galatians chapter 6. I pray that each person in Korea who watch this will bear the burden of the Jewish people who don't know the Messiah and bring the Messiah one step closer to the people in Zion. That's my heart.
이 코쇼피그라는 책을 쓰셨어요. 이 책에 대해서 소개를 좀 해주시죠. 어떤 내용이 들어가 있습니까?
The kosher pig, so you remember I shared a little bit with you on my story, my journey. What I have done is I've taken my journey and I put it into a unique court of law case. This took about 20 years to produce, and it's ended up being a bestseller in the United States. And to give you the paradox of the book, the entire book deals with Yeshua and his claims, and the top 10 books, it was on the top 10 Judaism books on Amazon. And it's a book to show you how much the Jewish people care about Yeshua. Just not your Yeshua, our Yeshua. They care about him, but they just have to explain it. So what I've done in this book, I put Yeshua, imagine a courthouse. I put Yeshua on trial. I am a person who's sitting in the stand. I am not the judge. The judges or the witnesses are the rabbis of the last 2,000 years, speaking about Yeshua, speaking about the Messiah. And we are accusing Yeshua here on the one thing that makes him unkosher to the Jewish people. His claim to be divine, the divinity. That's the question. Is he guilty or not guilty? So we laid it in the book, in essence, in 4 parts: framework of the court, the identification of the charges against Yeshua, and the major part of the book, it's evidence, where I survey the entire Tanakh, Old Testament, the entire New Testament, and hundreds of references from rabbinical writings of the Messiah. And then we deliver a verdict in the end of the book. So the book is basically a reference that will serve people for many, many years on almost like a lexicon. So The Return of the Kosher Pig is now translated to Hebrew, to Spanish, and we made it available. Really, it's really blessed so many Jewish people and Christians, shockingly, who are interested in know how to defend. Who is Yeshua? Is he the divine Son of God? Is the Son of God? Is the Father? Is he the Son? What is he? So when we're dealing with the Trinity, we're dealing with some serious theological issues in this book, and it's just a great. I would say if there's one book that needs to be in a library for every Christian, is The Return of the Kosher Pig, in knowing how to defend their faith. So that's a little bit about The Return of the Kosher Pig.